AT&T service, any other business you go to a mall, these are legitimate businesses, right? They're out there, these are consumer driven. So it's funny how they call them performance standard. They don't really have a standard to measure up against, right?
So what they are doing is they're estimating and averaging out all of the arrests and stops they've made over a year, and then enforcing that. So with crime actually going down, you're going to have these numbers go down. It's going to be harder to pull people over because there aren't as many crimes to enforce. But depending on how active they are within any given region, those statistics are always going to go up, which means their quota is going to go up as well. So it isn't just overzealous police officers. It could be just a legitimate crime driving these. They still have to respond to 911 calls. And if you look at crime statistics overall, crime is going down. But these statistics were based in a time where crime was actually pretty high, especially how far back you date it. So it could be based on irrelevant numbers, and the quota system, it really is targeting people just to meet a standard.
Right, and they call it performance standards. It's hilarious. So this is how they evaluate how well their extortionists are harassing and stealing from you. You know, remember, they're not a real business. They're not consumer driven. So it's kind of hilarious that sometimes they will use some of these words that people do use, in, I guess, in layman terms, to describe a real business that try to apply it here to a socialist production of security. So, for example, you know, you have to remember that they're paid and stolen property, right? The cops, for example, the monopoly on security, they're paid and stolen property to begin with. They're not actually creating real value. They're not trading value, as any brick and mortar store will show. So, you know, the only way that they can evaluate them, for example, because they're not consumer driven, they're not a real business, they're not profit driven to kind of match the quality of their service, right? Whereas any other business, you know, listens to their customers, listens to the consumers, so they want to, you know, change something up around their business, improve the quality, improve, you know, profits, reflect the, I guess, the appreciation of that service. But of course, their profits in terms of with the police, with the socialized security, their profits are stolen property. Right? They can't really measure it. They can't really measure their success, which is why the only way that they can provide, I guess, performance review of their police extortionists, of their services, is by measuring how much, I imagine, you know, in this kind of insanity viewpoint, of people that they harass, right? You have to harass at least 3 people a day, and you have to kidnap one of them. You know, I guess that's how we're going to measure it, right? They don't know how to function like a real private business. They don't know how to function like, for example, when you go to a nightclub, right? The security that they offer there are bouncers, right? And the performance standard review is like, you know, that there hasn't been any kind of violent escalations in the club, that things are kind of normal, that, you know, you're helping enforce the relaxed, tolerable rules there. You go to a mall, for example, those on Segway machines, you know, that the rules that people consent to going in there, you know, maybe shoes are permissible, you know, don't wear, you know, don't come into the mall without shoes or without clothes, for example, that they're enforcing those rules, that there's no, like, a cause for this escalation to arise or to go into greater effect. But with the police, they're not a real business, so they really don't have any incentive to kind of improve quality. They have mostly this incentive to kind of just to pick on you, or just to sit around and do nothing. And that's essentially what most of them do. So it's kind of interesting because it goes further to say, I think those are legitimate stops by our officers that observed a legitimate violation of the law. Remember, these laws are not legitimate. You do not have a voluntary consensual contract with this law, right? As you would any other service that's providing you, you know, maybe a service of areas to resolve disputes, a contract service. These are not legitimate. There is no factual evidence to show you have a consensual relationship with the police, with the monopoly on law, with government. Right, so they are not legitimate, no more than it would be legitimate for a burglar, right, to break into your house 3 times, right, and say, well, I'm fulfilling my quota, right? They're illegitimate. They're only legitimate because they look like they're on your side. Hey, man,
stop wasting my time. I have other houses to break into.
Yeah.
So even we don't know this about the Chesterfield police office, but there's plenty of other police officers who actually not only have a quota system on how much they stop, they have a quota system on how much they collect, especially for like meter maids and stuff. But think about that. If you're going to be extorting people and then you have a minimum standard of how much you have to extort people, that's their business. It's not how much money can you bring in, but you have to bring in this amount of money. And it makes it to where people could lie about speeding tickets. People can lie about just about anything to, again, increase the amount of loot they can take out through whatever charges.
And boy, do they lie. Remember, it's wrong for you to lie. It's called perjury. But if it's a cop, yeah, you can get away with it because they have the blue costume.
The judge agrees with me. The judge,
they're all on the same team. The state prosecutor, the judge, the public defense attorney, the police, they're all on the same team.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Now, it's interesting because the county administrator from Chesterfield, James J.L. Stagmeyer, said, "We do expect our officers to get out there and do their jobs responsibly and serve the citizens. I don't believe the citizens expect anything less from someone who is being paid to provide a service to keep the community safe. I don't think I feel safe when my money is being extorted from me," right? You can't protect property when you have to steal property in order to protect it, right? It's like we're living in a bizarre world here. I guess in view of trying to provide security, I don't feel like they're serving me. It seems like they're serving their self-interest. Seems like they're serving themselves, right? They need that stolen property to fund their jobs. All government positions are welfare jobs, right? These are other interesting welfare jobs in which affording the opportunity to harass other tax slaves.